The Fall of Hyperion by Simmons. So before I get into this review, I just want to say, in my Hyperion review, I said that the labyrinthine worlds were almost a billion years old for some reason. And it turns out that they are actually almost a million years old. So yeah, that's on me. And also, yet again, this is a brand new book, 2 weeks, right after 2 weeks, and the spine is already falling apart, right? I don't know what's up with Bantam books. Uh, this has never happened to me. But anyway, The Fall of Hyperion. This book was a bit, let's call it chaotic. It's all over the place in some areas, right? It just gets wild, right, and hard to understand for me. So perhaps I have to read it again. But this book can be classified in a couple of parts. So we have the Pilgrims on Hyperion, we have the John Keats cybrid, then we have the government at war with the ousters, and maybe even the, let's call it, the AIs, right? So we have basically four main parts here. Um, so we're gonna let's talk about the government and the cybrid, right? We have the John Keats cybrid, which makes a comeback in this book as I think he is called John Severin or something like that, right? So he is he this is the Severin is a second persona, and this hybrid has dreams about the pilgrims on Hyperion, and the government, Gladstone, she summons him to do some sketches of her. But actually, she just wants to find information about the pilgrims because, yet again, the fate of the universe depends on these seven pilgrims, and I still don't know why. But this is pretty much it with um, the cybrid and the government slash Gladstone, right? Uh, there's a lot of back and forth in this book. A lot of characters. They go from one place to the other. They talk to somebody, then they go to talk to somebody else, and they have to relay information. There's a lot of briefing and debriefing, a lot of travel that is just so prolonged, and it gets stale at some points, right? But the cybrid finally um, finds out some important information, and he has to take this information to Gladstone. But then he goes through a Farcaster portal, and he is trapped in a um, let's call it a fake rendition or a copy of Rome, right? And uh, he really relives the last days of the poet John Keats, and his body dies, but his let's call it his consciousness doesn't die. His consciousness goes back to the data sphere, right, where the AIs rule, and then um, we have Gladstone and the government at war with the ousters. And yet again, this is a lot of dull meetings, a lot of briefings, a lot of debriefings, a lot of talking to these people, then talking to those people talking to these people. Um, but then we find out that the ousters are not really at war with the hegemony of man. All of this has been orchestrated by the AI core, right? And from what I understand, the ousters that are attacking these worlds are actually cybrids that are meant to look like ousters, right? And uh, And then we find out that the actual ousters, they don't really want a war with mankind. They want to get rid of the AI core, which is sensible. And then there's the part with the AIs themselves. And I think this was the most difficult part for me to really understand what really was going on there. Um, so from what I understand, right, we have the AI core, and the AI core, the AIs, they don't really need mankind. A lot of the AIs, with the exception of a few, they have decided that mankind has to go. Right, mankind is not necessary anymore, and mankind has to go. But some of them, um, they don't feel that way. But the majority, they have orchestrated this war with the so-called ousters that are fake, to get rid of the hegemony of man. And because, from what I understand, these AIs, these super elite AIs, they want to create God. They want to create what they have named the ultimate intelligence, right? And we find out that in the future, there are two ultimate intelligences. So mankind in the future has created their ultimate intelligence, and the AIs of the future also have created their ultimate intelligence. And there's a war, right, between these two. But then it is revealed that these two AIs, mankind's and the AIs, right, their two ultimate intelligences, they also have created their ultimate intelligence, a third intelligence, which is referred to as empathy, right? And it is revealed that the empathy intelligence has fled to the past because of all the war. It couldn't take the war anymore. And while reading this, I immediately thought, well, who could this third intelligence be? And I said, of course, it has to be the Shrike, right? The Shrike seems like a machine with intelligence, and this made sense. But then it turns out that actually the third ultimate intelligence is actually the John Keats cybrid, allegedly. And the Shrike has been sent to the past to lure it and capture it and bring it back to the future so that they can conclude the war. And the Shrike tries to lure the Keats cybrid, with the tree of pain by impaling people and causing agony. Because, empathy, the theory is that empathy is drawn to the suffering of others, but this doesn't really turn out this way, right? Um, so yeah, this AI ultimate intelligence battle in the future, I don't know. It was difficult for me to understand. Maybe I have to read it again, but this was a cool part of the book. I actually enjoyed this, right? Yet again, we have a lot of literary references, and as well we have a lot of religious references that are just, they're not even references. They are a main part of this book. And I have already begun to read Endymion, which is, I don't know, right? Endymion is peculiar, right? But anyway, back to the fall of Hyperion. So there's a lot of walking around, a lot of travel, a lot of briefing and debriefing, a lot of talking, and then talking to these people, and then talking to those people, and then bringing the information back to the other people. This was a big downer for me in this book, because this book should have been filled with insane revelations, and not to say that there weren't a few revelations here and there, but it just felt like it was drawn out. It was just prolonged uh, to insane lengths, right? It was just too much. This book could have been compressed a lot. There's a lot of just, I don't know. Uh, the same thing could be said about when the John Keats cybrid is caught in a replica of Rome where it dies. It relives the death of the poet John Keats, and this part of the book was also way too drawn out, way too long, way too, I don't know. It was too much. But anyway, of course we have what really interested me in this Hyperion series, which is the Pilgrims, the planet Hyperion, uh, and the Shrike and the Ruins. That's all that interested me about this book series. And yet again, we have a lot of drawn out narratives, a lot of just walking around, a lot of just going for supplies, and so on and so on. It was just too much, right? So we have the pilgrims. They're finally at the ruins. They're traveling from the time tombs to the Sphinx to the obelisk to uh, what is it called? The Jaded Palace or the Crystal Palace, and so on. And this should have been the best part of this book. The pilgrims at the ruins, and a storm comes in, and they're just waiting out the storm, and they're just, I don't know. This was just a big oof to me, right? Because it was boring. I'm just gonna say it. It's a sad thing, but the chapters with the pilgrims at the ruins, they're just dull for the most part, which is a shame, because this is the narrative that drives this book for me, right? So they are at the ruins, and a storm comes in. How so convenient, and they can't do nothing. They can barely walk, and they get separated. This character wants to go there, that character goes here, two characters go to this site, and so on, and they get separated, and one by one they fall, right? Uh, and of course, in terms of character, I said it in the previous review that the soldier Fedman Kassad is the weakest character in this book series. I really don't understand why he's here. I don't get his purpose, right? Because he is the soldier, he is the warrior, and he goes off by himself, and he meets Moneta again, his lover, and we find out that she's from the future, and he gives him tech to fight the Shrike, and they go through a portal in the future, and they fight the Shrike, and the first time around, Kassad loses the battle with the Shrike, but he survives, right? And then the second time, he fights the Shrike again, and he wins. I mean, he doesn't really win, because he nonetheless defeats the Shrike, kills the Shrike, but he also dies, right? But what I have a problem with this battle between Kassad and the Shrike is Kassad and the Shrike engage in the second battle, right? In the second fight. And then we go to another character, another chapter. And when we come back to this fight, it's all over, right? The Shrike and Kassad are dead. Uh, and I don't like that. I don't like the fact that this was skipped over, that this happened off screen, right? Uh, yeah, so I don't understand this part about Kassad, why he has to fight the Shrike. Like I said, he is the weakest link in this book. He is a one-dimensional character. I don't like him at all. I'm completely indifferent to his existence or his so-called purpose. But as this fight with the Shrike goes on in the future, we maybe have to read this again to fully understand it. But Kassad and Moneta go to the future, and we have these crazy looking people there, that they at the ruins that are in ruins in the future, and we see that there are hundreds and thousands of other Shrikes in the future, right? So what's happening in the future? I don't get, whenever the future is mentioned with these crazy looking people. I don't really know what's going on. What is this, right? What's going on? Why are there so many Shrikes in the future? And if the Shrike was sent from the future, why haven't there been more Shrikes? Because so Kassad kills the Shrike and he dies as well, right? But I don't know how many chapters later, after the Shrike has been killed by Kassad, another Shrike pops up. So I don't know what's going on. I really don't. I really don't get what's going on with the Shrike, because the Shrike has allegedly been killed by Kassad, and a couple of chapters later, the Shrike uh, comes around again, and I don't get it. I don't. Is it another Shrike? Is it this Shrike? But it's coming from a different timeline. I don't know. I don't know. This whole time travel stuff, I don't know. It was a bit muddled to me, right? Um, I mean, what else? So we find out that this Ouster war was a phony. The actual Ousters, they don't want to fight. They want to cooperate with mankind to defeat the AI core. And eventually, they blow up the Farcaster portals because the AI core lives in between the space of the Farcaster portals, right? So we are left with the question if the AIs are actually defeated and dead, or if they are still lingering, right, in the darkness, weaving their webs. And I think, yeah, they're still alive and they're still making plans, because the future, as it turns out, it's grim. And there's also, I forgot to mention, there's also this scene where the Keats cybrid is talking to a AI. I think Umon is his name, and he reveals that the John Keats cybrid was created by him and other AIs, I think, right? Uh, uh, but then again, later we find out that this John Keats persona was created in the future by the ultimate AIs, right? So, like I said, I'm a bit confused about what's really going on here. Maybe it's my fault. I have to read it again, but I'm just confused about this whole AI, ultimate AI, the war in the future, a thousand Shrikes, the time travel stuff is just a bit complicated for me. I don't really get it, you know. Uh, and then we have the time ruins on Hyperion. They keep on glowing, right? And I don't know how these things work. How does the Sphinx work? How do the time tombs work? You know, they allow some people to pass, uh, and they don't allow others to pass. But I have to say, what I really liked and what really was surprising about this, the reveal that um, Moneta, right? She is from the future, and she is also a Rachel, right? So she is Rachel Sol Weintraub's daughter, who is suffering from the Merlin sickness, and she is aging in reverse, right? So a couple of moments before Rachel dies, the Shrike appears and he is given the baby Rachel, and it goes away with the baby. For some reason, this was never explained because, as it turns out, the Shrike is just some stupid ass machine, a killing machine, right? It has no, let's call it, awareness, right? It's just a killing machine. But for some reason, this Shrike is interested in the baby that's suffering from the time sickness, right? So Rachel's father, Soul, he gives the baby to the Shrike, and the Shrike fucks off with the baby. Um, and then, with the help of the Keats cybrid, the baby is saved, and adult Rachel comes out of the time tombs with the baby Rachel. I don't know how this paradox is possible, but it happens. And it is revealed that baby Rachel is Moneta from the future, and she is the Shrike's keeper for some reason, right? And we find out that this adult Rachel, Moneta from the future, has to go back to the future, right? And so baby Rachel is now cured of her Merlin sickness, and Soul and the baby, they go through the time tombs into the future for some reason. Yet again, this whole uh, narrative about the time travel and the future, it's cloudy to me. I don't really get what's really happening here, and maybe it's my fault because I have to read it again. I have to pay attention, but it's just confusing, right? It's confusing what because it makes sense that because Soul and the baby go through the time tombs into the future, that explains uh, why Moneta, adult Rachel, is in the future, right? It makes sense in a way. In a way, it makes sense why all of this has happened. So, because Soul and the baby go into the future, then that's that makes it possible for Kassad, the young Kassad, to meet Moneta in a simulation, and so on. And that's how it all connects, right? Um, and what else? We have the priest Dure, who becomes the next pope for some reason. And I have to mention, I have began reading Endymion, and the whole church priest pope thing. I mean, it was just crazy what happens in that book, right? But anyway, back to the fall of Hyperion. All in all, it's a good book. Like I said, Dan Simmons is a good writer. There's some great writing here, but overall, this book is a bit too prolonged. It should have been shortened, compressed. It should have been more concise. Um, Again, now the hegemony of mankind is no more. They have no more Farcaster portals. They don't have any more sophisticated technology, and now they are cooperating with the ousters, right? Um, and I also forgot to mention another interesting part in this book because the John Keats cybrid, the persona, his body dies, but his let's soul or consciousness or awareness, it still lives. It has survived, right? And as we know, Lamia is pregnant with this persona's child, and if you read Endymion, you find out some interesting things about that child, but I'm not gonna say anything right now. And we are left off with Lamia, and I think she's 7 months pregnant, and Hyperion. The planet is populated yet again. The city of poets and so on. It becomes a bustling city yet again. Silenus, the poet. comes back to his old home, and so on. And we are left with this epilogue where Braun Lamia is, on the precipice of giving birth to the child, her daughter, which is referred to the one who teaches, right? Her child will be the one who teaches in the next installment, Endymion, right? And I'm currently reading that one, and it is, you know, I'm still waiting for some revelations, but because this book series, I think that everything will be tied together in the fourth book. It has to be, because I still don't know why these pilgrims are so important to the future, right? I still don't. I get it. Braun Lamia is important. The John Keats persona was important to meet when he met her, and then we have uh, uh, Paul Dure and Hoyt, the two priests that are going to be prominent in Endymion. And then we have Saul Weintraub and Rachel. They are in the future. And then we have Martin Silenus, who wrote the cantos, and the cantos also make an appearance in the Endymion. And then we have the console. So I'm still waiting how all of this connects, how all of this ties together. What's really going on here? What is the underlying purpose and meaning and significance of all of this? All of the time travel, all of the nuances. Uh, because right now, I was really excited about my boy the Shrike, and it turns out that he is just some chump, some errand boy, and there are other Shrikes in the future, so he is replaceable. The Shrike is not unique, which is a sad thing, right? And then we have the time ruins, which I don't know how they work. They allow some people to pass through time. They deny others. They keep on glowing for some reason. Nobody knows anything. Again, with the labyrinthian worlds, nobody knows anything about who created those labyrinths, how they did it, how old they really are, and so on. What's the purpose? What's the meaning? How it connects? And the people of the future, both human and ouster, they look weird. Uh, they have, animal traits, but they're at the same time they're really sophisticated, technologically wise, technology wise. So, I'm still waiting to find out what's really going on here, because I think that I'm missing something about this book series, and I don't really know what that is. I'm missing something, but I don't know what it is. But anyway, this was The Fall of Hyperion. It was a decent read. A decent read. A bit too complicated, a bit too jumbled, muddled. It was all over the place, but a good read nonetheless. And I can't wait to continue with Endymion. And that's about it.